This is the units calling San Antonio, Texas, and Virginia, Minnesota. This is one of the glider stories of the last invasion, the aerial crossing of the Rhine to the north on March 24th at a little German town called Wesel. Through a man-made haze and a chilling mist, paratroopers of the 17th Airborne struck the first assault of the now historic Montgomery beachhead. By the middle of the morning, hundreds and hundreds of gliders materialized through the shrouds of smoke, stalling in, fast and slow, ripping fragile wings, tearing up plexiglass noses, but, above all, getting the airborne right in the center of fighting, right where they were needed. But before glider pilots of the 439th Troop Carrier Group set a foot on German ground, they had flown over 350 miles. Before they took their chances with 88s and 40s and 20 millimeters as well as small arms fire in those German fields, they'd flown the distance between Chicago and New York in a gale that was sometimes as high as 50 miles per hour. Right now, Flight Officer Claude A. Berry of San Antonio, Texas, and Second Lieutenant J.H. Aase of Virginia, Minnesota, are standing beside this microphone somewhere in France. They are ready to give you their report. Now, you folks back in San Antonio, as well as up in Virginia, Minnesota, might not be able to recognize these boys now. They're unshaven, they're dirty, they're tired and hungry, but they're back, safe and sound, with a story about the cat and dog fighting around Wesel just 6 days ago today. First, I'd like to speak to Flight Officer Claude A. Berry of San Antonio, Texas. I'd like to have you, if you will, Claude, tell the folks back home a little bit about how it felt coming into that field in the glider.
Well, we were trying to follow Flight Officer Rossi, who was in a short tow of our double tow. And I was flying co-pilot with Flight Officer Ray. And Flight Officer Rossi had part of his wing shot off, and he was dropping pretty fast, and we couldn't keep up with him. Had to land pretty fast. We had to...
How fast did you land?
About 120 we hit.
And was there any damage to your glider getting it into the field?
No, not getting it into the field.
I see. Well, now suppose we switch over for just a moment to Second Lieutenant J.H. Aase of Virginia, Minnesota. And I understand, Lieutenant Aase, that you found a great deal of excitement down there on the ground, particularly in a counterattack by the Germans the night that you arrived in there. Can you tell the folks back home something about what that was like?
Yes. That night, after we had landed and made our way to the CP, we were set on out, hold a perimeter strip, and it was about 3 o'clock the next morning that about 100 Germans and a few tanks were making a counterattack.
I see.
The Germans were making this bonsai attack that sounds like a bunch of striped Indians, but...
whooping and hollering,
Well,
huh?
yes, they sure were.
Screaming and raising hell.
They really were. And they had this mobile flak gun that was covering their attack, which kept most of us in our foxholes all the time. Of course, there's a bunch of other glider pilots that were set up with machine guns that really fixed the Germans.
I see. Well, for the folks back home, that was a very brief frontline report from Flight Officer Claude A. Berry of San Antonio, Texas, and Second Lieutenant J.H. Aase of Virginia, Minnesota. This is Lieutenant Ross Evans returning you to the United States.